Hey guys, I recently got a question about how you can um, torp at a ship that's outside your torpedo range, potentially using only the default torpedo indicator. So this is mostly down to how basic trigonometry works. Let's say that this is your destroyer, and you got a little torpedo circle on it. It doesn't matter what the range is, and you see a ship driving outside the torpedo range. You can imagine that like a straight line comes from the bow of the ship. In this case, I drew a red line there. So this ship will never drive within range of the torpedo. So obviously you're not going to hit it. So let's say we have 10-kilometer torpedoes. He's 13 kilometers away. You're never going to hit him. If you're locked onto the target, however, you do get additional information on how fast the ship is traveling, assuming it doesn't change speed. In this case, let's assume it's traveling at full speed, and it's angled like this. And this is your torpedo arc. In this case, you actually can hit the ship. The reason behind this is your torpedo arc tells you you're able to fire in such a way that the ship will be here when it arrives, assuming it doesn't change direction. So let me move it closer so it's a little more realistic. So it's driving this way, at a casual speed. In this case, the torpedo arc tells you that the ship will be in this direction within however long it takes for the torpedo arc to match the ship arc. So this is actually giving you a predictor of if the ship will just continue straight, you will hit him here. And basically, what that tells you is that this ship is outside range, but he's going fast enough to enter the torpedo range, assuming he doesn't turn, for you to be able to hit him. So you can use this information in a lot of ways to get long-range torpedo hits off when they're outside, your detection range. In most cases, like if you have a ship, let's assume that I can't actually show it outside. Let's assume that the ship is heading towards you. Assume your torpedoes are going 60 knots and it's like a cruiser or a battleship that's not super slow. You can potentially actually land a hit like this when this is about 50% outside the circle. So like this. If he's like this and you're like this and he's driving straight towards you and he's going 30 knots, your torpedoes are 60 knots, your torpedoes will actually reach right here. So this is more of a intuition of knowing how fast ships go in the game. You have to know a lot about enemy ship speed. So this is one of the harder shots to do because you don't actually have a complete reference of how far your torpedoes will go, just a direction. But any sort of angled shot where you're likely to see the ship line cross in will tell you whether or not you're going to hit them. So in this case, you can see that this line, it crosses here, and your estimated point of intercept would be here. So if this were to be anywhere along this arc, that would mean the ship would cross into your range if it doesn't change any directions. However, if it's like this, you'll notice that your crossing point is here. So he's not going to get within your torpedo range. That's the only exception is if at any point the ship's path intersects with the circle of your torpedo range and your arc is in front of or is past the intersect range, you will be able to torp him, assuming he doesn't turn away from you. If he turns away from you like this, oops, can't shear that. If he turns away like that, you're not going to hit him, obviously. If it's like this and your torpedo arc is like just past it like that, and you're not going to hit, this is already pretty close as is. But like this, fair game. What I typically do, I don't just aim at where they're going to be, assuming they don't turn. I fire in a little spread along this entire line. So if they decide to turn, south, unless they decide to turn the entire way down here, for example. If they just decide to slow down or anything, or just do slight course corrections that adjust their speed, I'll be able to hit them along this entire arc that it passes into the circle. So that's really all there is to it. You just need to know where the ship is going in relation to where your arc is pointing. If it crosses anywhere into your torpedo line before your arc that means you can hit them. If it crosses after the arc, or if it doesn't cross the circle at all, you're obviously not going to hit them. It's a nice little thing to get used to eventually, because a lot of the times when you're playing in a situation where you have to run away, you actually get increased torpedo range because you can fire it further, especially if you're running away from a ship. If you're running away from a ship like this and he's chasing you, you can probably get up to like 15 kilometers with the 10-kilometer torpedoes. Don't underestimate the ability to be able to predict ships at ranges beyond your torpedo range. It's always worth it to fire if you have a chance to hit them. If you don't have a chance, obviously don't fire. But if you have a chance to hit them and you have nothing else to shoot at, like right next to you, go for the shot. At the very least, you'll make him worry there's a destroyer closer to him than actually is, because you're firing it such a way that you're no longer in the area. It's probably about like a minute or a minute and a half of travel time for those torpedoes. You're already long gone, so it gives you an advantage of presenting a location where you were at a minute ago and you're not actually there anymore. So that's why I enjoy firing at the maximum range sometimes, especially with like the Minotaur, which can stealth torpedo, or I know a lot of people play Japanese torpedoes or Japanese maybe torpedo boats like Shimakaze. Don't do this at 20 kilometers. It's usually not worth it. But anything like 10 kilometers ish, you're probably going to be able to get the arc off for the mid-tier Japanese destroyers. And especially, I think you can barely do this with the German destroyers. If you're driving away, you get that extra 50% range, assuming they're traveling at half the speed of torpedoes. So this is how you can stealth torpedo fire with the German destroyers. It's really not that hard to pick up once you get used to it. Just imagine all your ships have little lines coming off of it. I know there's a mod that does that, but you really don't need it. You can do this, just using your eyeball, looking at the map. Just try it out. You might really enjoy it. It's a really helpful skill to learn, regardless of whether or not you use it a lot, simply because it'll allow you to determine also enemy ship locations from the other way around.